What if you could spot the next Uber before anyone else? But you know what they say, by the time you read about it in the Wall Street Journal, it's already too late. Jason Calacanis, legendary Silicon Valley investor and the world's greatest moderator on the All In podcast, was an early investor in Uber, and he turned a check of 25,000 into 100 million plus. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how Jason evaluates founders and how you can apply his framework to make smarter investments. Jason's got so much content out there. He's on the All In podcast. He's got his other podcast called This Week in Startups. He writes blog posts about investments that he does. He's very present, and that's such a great thing about this time that we live in. You can literally pick up any skill for free here on YouTube, for example. Additionally, I just got his book, Angel, How to Invest in Technology Startups, Timeless Advice from an Angel Investor Who Turned 100,000 into 100 million. But before I cover Jason's unique style of handling media and his personal brand, let's get into Jason's investment framework and style. Jason's approach to angel investing is writing small checks of 25 to 100,000, and he recommends doing that for 30 to 50 companies when you're starting out. Today, he invests in 100 startups per year, so if you do the maths, that's 2 startups per week. We'll get into how he gets this much deal flow later on in the video. But Jason's all about betting on founders and not on companies. He gets asked frequently, how do you pick billion-dollar companies to invest in? And to that he replies, you don't pick billion-dollar companies, you pick billion-dollar founders. He's looking for 100x return, nothing less. He looks for a company who blow it out of the park. And his belief is that the best investment is in relentless founders solving massive problems. But how does he decide who gets the check? For that, he asks 4 key questions. The secret to understanding Jason's investment style is that he wants to understand, why has this founder chosen this particular business? How committed is the founder? What are the founders' chances of succeeding at this particular business, but also in life? And 4th, what does winning look like in terms of revenue and my return as an investor? In order to do this, Jason has developed a tactic of how to get the answers to this question, but without asking this direct of a question right away. He wants to ask more open-ended questions and let the founders just carry the conversation. Meanwhile, he's making notes on paper, and for the first 30 minutes, he makes it a challenge to speak as little as possible. Many investors make the mistake of talking too much because they think they need to impress the founder by talking about themselves instead of listening. It's like this weird phenomenon when you're walking around in crutches and people start telling you about this one time they twisted their ankle or broke their collarbone. Nobody cares, so stop talking about yourself and figure out what you can do for them. Don't be that kind of investor. So to make founders reveal everything, there are 2 parts to each question. What Jason asks out loud and what he's really trying to figure out. So the first thing that he asks in a meeting is, what are you working on? He asks this because it's an open-ended question and it just lets the founder tell their story. It gives him a clear insight into the founder's passion, clarity, and depth of understanding. Jason's doing this to figure out secretly, why did this particular founder choose this particular business? He wants to see some sort of passion, almost an obsession with the problem at this point. In the example of Uber, Travis Kalanick was struggling with getting cabs in SF, or was it London? Not sure. But there's a great story, and obviously that story will be a great intro in the pitch meeting, maybe even later on in the company's pitches, but this is what drives the founder, so identifying that is key. A red flag at this point would be if the founder is struggling to explain their idea in plain English. And if you don't understand it, don't feel dumb. It's really their job to make you understand, and even if they have to talk to you like they're talking to a golden retriever. Because if a golden retriever doesn't get the idea, there's probably not a lot there. Question number 2 is, why are you doing this? At this point, he wants to really dig deeper on passion and the motivation beyond money, because passion plus personal connection equals resilience. Jason is secretly trying to figure out how committed is this founder? And will they stick with it even when times get tough? Because in a startup, you will have tough times. An example is Airbnb, where the founders were selling cereals just to keep their startup afloat. A red flag here is when the founder doesn't have a real connection to the problem they're trying to solve, they're just riding out a trend that they currently see. Question number 3 he asks is why now? The biggest founders and companies, they ride out waves that are currently happening, waves of massive change. If this business could have been built 10 years ago, why is it a good idea to found this company now? Jason's secretly trying to evaluate what are the founders' chances of succeeding, and are they capitalizing on a unique moment in time? For example, Uber was only possible because of the iPhone. The mobile era, with the iPhones having GPS technology, only enabled a startup like Uber to be successful. And a red flag at this point is if they can't give you a good reason why this startup will take off now instead of 5 years ago. Fourth question that he asks in the first founder meeting is, what's your unfair advantage? He asks this because every startup has something that makes it hard to copy. This could be anything from tech, distribution, network effects, or founder execution skill. This is when he's trying to answer the question, what does winning look like in terms of revenue and ultimately my return as an investor? Can this business become a 100x investment? An example here is Tesla, where you have a vertically integrated supply chain paired with Elon Musk's brand power to make it a fortress. A red flag would be if a founder tells you, we just work harder than everyone else. I mean, that's just too generic. So now that we've figured out the 4 questions that Jason is trying to answer in his great book, let's cover how Jason uses media and his personal brand to create a flywheel effect for pipeline investors and just building his network as an angel investor. Jason actually started his career as a journalist, so building authority through content comes naturally to him. He's actually said if you share smart takes publicly, people will assume that you're smart. He also doubled down on his authority as a great investor by writing this book and manifesting himself as one of the gurus in the angel investing space, which he clearly is now, and the book has become a must-read in the angel investment community. So the takeaway here is that in order to get access to the best deals, you must be known. His second tactic is being on podcasts and just sharing publicly, being on interviews, etc. As a host on This Week in Startups, he has a tactical advantage because he speaks to founders even before they blow up. He builds relationships that then lead to investment opportunities. By being in the right circles, he became this insider that he wasn't before. He says so himself. And the takeaway here is that startup will want you as their investor if they think that they can benefit from being associated with you and if you can give them exposure on your platforms or in your network. The third way Jason uses media and his personal brand to push his stature as a great angel investor is by amplifying his portfolio through promoting the companies that he invests in on all the platforms that he's on. This starts with him writing a blog post when he decides to invest in a company. That way, putting out there to the world that he backs this company, and by association alone, this is a great benefit to the company. Nowadays, with the All In podcast, him plugging 1 or 2 of his investments every episode, that's just like unpaid advertising. And that's an insane reach that will make every founder want him on their investments cap table because they realize that he helps companies win and he doesn't just write checks. So by implementing this whole media strategy and building his personal brand, having these platforms where he's got a lot of reach, this has allowed him to really go to the next level in terms of what he can do for a company. And how this matters for you is don't just be an investor who writes checks. You've got to be more than that. You can use media and the current outlets that are literally at your fingertips to reach a very big audience, build your network, build authority, and therefore help startups grow like that. So at this point, you probably realize that Jason has a very unique style, and that style is very different to the style of Peter Thiel, whose investment framework we covered in another video. Whereas Jason is really more on the spray and pray side of investing in many companies and spraying his bets. Peter Thiel is about picking companies that will, through monopolies, become the winner in their sector. Jason looks at founders, whereas Peter Thiel looks at a market-based approach. Whereas Jason has a high volume of investments, Peter Thiel works very selective and almost secretive, taking a contrarian approach. Jason uses the portfolio theory and tries to spread his bets, whereas Peter Thiel really tries to seek monopolies and looks for companies that will dominate entire industries. So if you want to invest broadly and maximize your deal flow, Jason's way is probably more for you. If you prefer making big contrarian bets on potential monopolies, you're probably leaning more towards Peter Thiel. Whose strategy do you think is better, Jason's or Peter's? Let me know in the comments. If you like this breakdown of Jason Calacanis' investment framework, I've got another video breaking down Peter Thiel's radically different investor framework. Click here to watch it now.